Um, like when I was a kid, I was usually struggle with focus and stuff like that, so a lot of things just went completely out of my head. A lot of the situations I was in, I would never really be able to like understand how other kids were functioning and how they were working on their stuff, and I kind of either tagged behind or it would be harder for me to focus and understand what was going on. My mum and dad were like very aware of like mental health and stuff like that, so they kind of like they were thinking very early on he might be autistic, so they would often like try and do things that would like support autism and like see if there was to get a diagnosis and stuff like that. And like when I was a kid, I was very obsessed with like arts and crafts and stuff like that, so they could see that I was like a very creative person, but they could also see the downside traits of autism of like not understanding simple tasks and stuff like that. The one that I've been struggling the most with is like very extreme thinking, and it's quite fixed a lot of the time, but recently I've been trying to like think more logically, but a lot of the time it's an all or nothing situation where I think of like any creative idea or any idea in general, and it kind of goes between like this is a horrible idea or this is the best idea ever, and there's no like grey area in between them, so it's quite difficult to kind of get from one point to the next. Actually just recently, like maybe 2-3 years ago I believe, I finally like got a proper diagnosis and like did tests because my mum was very eager to like know if I was autistic or not, and they would be able to understand my thinking a lot more if they could like research into autism and how autistic people think and function. So she was like trying to helping me get through the diagnosis. My very first one was Lilo and Stitch. I was really obsessed with the movies and cartoons as a kid, and I just like completely fell in love with it, and kind of my whole personality trait as a kid was like surrounding becoming Stitch pretty much. So very chaotic and silly. I got really obsessed with just anything creative really. There was video games that I loved as a kid, like Minecraft and Team Fortress 2. I would spend pretty much weeks on end just playing them, and it just kind of took over my brain a lot of the time in positive and negative ways. My current interests at the moment are recently it's just been like movies in general. I love like learning all of the behind the scenes facts and like how things are shot. The thing that I struggle with the most is usually like fitting in and understanding how other people work, and I kind of like observe them and their mindset and try and like figure out how they think in a different way. The biggest struggle for me as a kid at least was struggling to fit in with other kids because I could never really think the same as them, so I always knew that I was quite different from them. So a lot of the time it's hard for me to communicate with people that don't have autism because they have more of an understanding of a lot of things that like trip me up or confuse me in my head. So that's one of the like negatives of it. A positive is that it's given me quite a creative brain, so like part of my head is very creative and it like focuses on a lot of things like that. I like analysing and thinking about how my brain works as well, which is to me a positive, I suppose. It's like sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad. There's like times I've been trying to think more logically and rationalise a lot of my thinking. Before like completely jumping to a conclusion, I try and remind myself, hey, you're autistic, and kind of say that you might be like jumping to a conclusion, or you might have not actually seen what was really happening, or you might have not processed it right, so maybe backtrack a little bit and then figure it out. I suppose be patient with them, I think, because a lot of autistic people have a mindset where it takes a lot longer to process things, at least for me it does. Definitely like take your time and communicate very well, because a lot of autistic people, at least for me, I struggle with like visual communication, so I can never really tell what somebody intends based on their face alone. Either it takes too long to process the right way, or you kind of process things in a different way and then you get attached to that kind of thinking, and it's very difficult to like detach that. So I usually need them to like reassure me by communicating what they actually mean and saying like how they feel and stuff like that.